Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Real Podcasters, the show where, as ever, we're talking all things movies, TV shows, video games, and a bunch of other things in no particular order. My name's Regan, as ever, and I'm joined once again by my live-action co-host. It's Dan.
Evening.
Alright.
Alright.
Saying evening again
governor.
on an episode going out on a morning. So confusing. I love it.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world.
Just like, hi.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi. I'm fairly certain there is someone listening to us in Japan, according to Spotify for podcasters. Hi to that person as well. For some reason, there's someone in Japan listening to us. As you do.
What can we say? We're branching out, you know?
I mean, there's branching out, and then there's other side of the planet. Somehow. I don't know how that
maybe
happens.
you know that one person just has to have such an eclectic taste.
Yeah, and all of the podcasts that they listen to are just people with northern accents.
Yeah.
So us, and nothing else.
Yeah.
Anywho. So, last week, we spoke about The Last of Us. That was I'm not going to say a fun one, because that series isn't fun. But yes, that response was really nice. So, if this is the sort of podcast that you enjoy listening to, as ever, we're available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music, Podbean, Pocket Casts, CastBox. There is potential now that I might be able to get these episodes back onto YouTube after finding some tweaking with the internet. It's not fixed. I've just found a temporary fix.
You found a temporary workaround, as in switching to a mobile hotspot so it uploads quicker.
Yeah, I've got like 82 gigs of data every month, and well, that thing uploaded in 2 minutes. So yeah. I was like, yeah, you know what? I might just do that. Possibly. I'll think about it.
You've probably got like our listeners on YouTube like constantly refreshing it, and they're just like...
I mean, the subscriber count hasn't changed, so thanks to those still supporting a dead channel, essentially.
Well, it's technically undead if you're actually able to upload it.
Relatively undead. We'll go
relatively undead. Very, relatively not very living.
Yeah, sort of. But yes, we're available on all those, YouTube, TBC. Social media wise, as ever, we're available on Instagram. That's where most of the updates go. Both of us have Letterboxd accounts. I've got a personal one, so I'm still uploading reviews every now and again on that. Essentially whenever I can get round to it, basically.
Because you're a busy little bee.
Yeah, I've got a 5-day out of 7 job that takes up too much of my time. And quite frankly, if I could do this as a proper profession, I'd be 3% happier, I think.
3% happier, like specifically 3%.
I'm being realistic, Dan. Because I'm already like, very, very happy.
Like, you know, 10% happier, 5% happier. No, 3% happier. I hate the number 3.
Fine, 4. Is that that better for you, Dan? Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thanks.
At least make it like an even number, Regan. Jesus. And Dan also has a letterbox specifically for Graveyard Chit Chats, the other podcast that we do every now and again. Where
that
we
might be changing soon, because I do have a lot of backdated reviews, so I will probably be catering it to a personal one now.
Ooh, we'd like you'll have to let us know, and I'll have to make a web link.
Yes, I will.
But yes, we're available on all of those, so definitely check those out. Give them a follow, give them a rating, all that sort of stuff. It's literally the cheapest thing you can do for us, and it gets this podcast out just a little bit more.
And nothing's cheap in the UK at the minute, but this is like nothing. This is free beyond your belief.
I was about to say, as long as you don't say free beyond your wildest dreams, because this podcast probably isn't your wildest dreams, it's just a dream that you occasionally...
I mean, it's definitely not some like Willy Wonka styled thing, so...
Don't make me consider doing an episode on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, because you know it's going to be 3 hours long.
I could write a thesis on the flavoured wallpaper.
What, again? I've already done that stuff.
Well, you know, it's bad enough when I mentioned loving knee Godzilla, and like I could write a thesis on
Shin
why
Godzilla.
he changes colour.
This is one hell of a tangent for like the opening of an episode. I mean, this is the sort of thing that you'd expect from us on episode 56. Christ.
Yeah. And, if you haven't really caught on the fact that we are just far from professional, then you're really listening to the wrong thing.
I'll be professional in episode 200-ish.
You absolute liar.
I mean, yeah, obviously. But yes, this week we are delving into superhero stuff. The topic that we keep on questioning as to whether or not we're actually going to cover.
I love it how it was like Ant-Man. We're not going to discuss any superhero stuff again, and here we are.
That being said, though, this one I knew we were going to have to talk about because Dan had to watch the previous film because he hadn't seen it until like a week ago. Well, heresy, honestly. I don't know how it's possible you hadn't seen Into the Spider-Verse.
Should I mention my thoughts on this before we actually go into the sequel, seeing as how
we will do in a second.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, we'll discuss it in a sec. But yeah, this week we are talking about the newly released Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's different now because it's a different way of going into the Spider-Verse. It's now going across it, just sort of like along the side of it. Yeah. Very, very long way of saying that. But yeah, this has mostly the same core cast in the front, but then of course you've got 650 different versions of Spider-Man in the background. That's me again with my attempt at maths. Pretty accurate. I'm not gonna lie
to be honest, I didn't count every single one of them. I just thought that's a lot of spider people.
Right, if you didn't count them, then why the hell are we doing this entire episode? The trivia section, there's 657 bits. 650 of them are each version of Spider-Man. It's not. I didn't count either. I just count the big ones that everyone saw. But anyway, yeah, we'll talk about spoilers in a bit. So with this film, we're set just over a year after the events of Into the Spider-Verse. Miles Morales is still trying to hone his skills as his universe's version of Spider-Man before being flung across the Spider-Verse alongside Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman, depending on which version you are, as they deal with the Spider Society, this big elite group. I say elite group, some of them are idiots. Spoilers? That's fine. Just so many spider people from across the multiverse, headlined by Oscar Isaac's Spider-Man 2099, one of my personal favourites, I'm not going to lie to you. As Miles Morales must try and figure out what being Spider-Man actually means, whilst also dealing with a bipedal Dalmatian calling himself the Spot.
What Dalmatian?
A bipedal Dalmatian stands on two legs. Dan, did you even science in school?
I honestly thought Dalmatian isn't wrong, to be honest. You're not wrong.
I mean, I'm pretty certain at some point he's references a cow or a Dalmatian, I think. So I'm not too far off the line there. Yes, as mentioned before, Dan has only just seen Into the Spider-Verse because he's just committing cardinal sins every single week now, honestly. So, gratefully, when we recorded the last episode of Graveyard Chit Chat, I was able to corral Dan into admitting his basic feelings on Into the Spider-Verse because I did not want to wait 3 more days for you to tell me that you didn't like it, which gratefully, unless he lied to me, that's not the case. Mr. Dan.
Right, so obviously this came out well before Multiverse of Madness, so this was a proper look into
2018.
Yeah, pretty much the debut into the multiverse stuff with Marvel, though it's not technically published by Marvel Studios. After all, it's Sony who owns Spider-Man. However, Spider-Man is still a Marvel character, so in some ways it's Marvel endorsed.
Yeah.
I think it was possibly one of the greatest films I've ever watched, and as somebody who pretty much binges horror every single day, definitely one of the best things I've watched in a long time, to be honest.
Correct. Well done.
Kicks pretty much half of the Marvel Cinematic Universe out of the yard, really. Especially those that explore the Multiverse of Madness.
We are going to be talking about that.
My God, it just... I mean, look, I see what issues Multiverse of Madness had, but I don't blame Raimi for that at all. I blame Disney for that. Because, well, you see, we want this. and we're gonna do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel really, really sorry for the guy. But Into the Spider-Verse, I was thrilled with it. I was absolutely thrilled with it. I can't believe it's taken me so long to actually watch it.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty certain. I mean, I could be wrong. Feel free to fact check this on me. I'm fairly certain that Into the Spider-Verse is still on the top 250 narrative films list on Letterboxd.
Oh yeah, it's still got like a really high rating on Letterboxd. It's like 4.5 or something like that.
Well, even this one currently, as of us recording this,
like that, isn't it?
4.7.
Yeah.
Like, that is ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
Genuinely, it is. For reference, actually, top 250 narrative list, this is number 16.
16? Bloody hell.
Into the Spider-Verse is number 16.
Right.
Again, ridiculous. Current one doesn't have one yet. I mean, it hasn't. It's been seen by 168,000 people. And as I say, with a current average rating of 4.7, which is one of the highest of any film ever, really, on the site. I don't know how long that's going to last, because let's face it, even Scream 6 had it extremely high for a while.
It did, yeah.
Like, shockingly
Scream was
high.
very close to being, I think, like, very close to being 4. Like, 4 point whatever at some point.
And even Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I think, is still on 4.1, and rightfully so. We might talk about Guardians maybe after the summer. I know we didn't actually discuss it because Dan didn't go and see it in cinemas. Probably just wait until Disney Plus rocks up. But I don't blame you for not going to see it, because let's face it, Marvel burnout.
Oh yeah, and do you know what it is? I think that kind of leads into why it's taken me so long to watch this. Like, look, I like every single Spider-Man film bar The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because let's face it, but that's its own kettle of fish.
Yeah.
You know. So you have a bit of a burnout from the films, because let's face it, over the past couple of years with cinema releases, some of these have just been, well, they've been average at best, to be honest. I mean, like, the new Ant-Man film, it just totally had me burnt out in the end. I'm like, wow, I'm not looking forward to cinema releases now. So I was like, well, Regan wants to talk about Across the Spider-Verse. I actually need to watch Into the Spider-Verse. So watching it, and I was just like, I can't believe it's taken me so long to watch it, because it's like one of the best things ever. I mean, it's honestly, it knocks No Way Home out of the park for me. And I mean, I know No Way Home's great and all, but this was just terrific.
Yeah, I think I'll be rewatching No Way Home again soon. I think because I know I've been wanting to watch it with my girlfriend for a very long time.
You can pick up the I know you can get, like, obviously different versions of it. You know, you get like 4K and stuff like that, but I'm sure there's like the edition that we were actually going to do an episode on, if you recall. But I went to Tenerife. So it was basically
I can't talk to myself.
Yeah, I can't like, you know, go to a cinema in Tenerife and watch like a director's cut of No Way Home that adds like however many minutes to the film.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, that was a waste of money, quite frankly. I thought it was like, it's just it was a pointless re-release, to be honest. I mean, the poster that they re-released, fantastic, blows the original poster out of the park, plus has the addition of Maguire and Andrew Garfield in there as well. But wasn't worth an extra 12 minutes, quite frankly. But, you know, I think eventually I'll get around to it, because realistically, the only reason I didn't was because she's going to have to see a bit of the Andrew Garfield films. So she saw the last hour of Amazing Spider-Man 2 and said, quite categorically, I really liked the way they did Gwen Stacy's death. I was like, yeah. It's a shame about the rest of us, frankly. So now she can watch it. But yeah, with Into the Spider-Verse, it's still, for me, I think, the greatest superhero film ever. And bearing in mind, it had no right being as good as it was, because it's Sony doing Spider-Man again, and I'm like,
I know, no. Like, it's baffling because of what Sony have released. I mean, obviously Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Morbius,
Venom.
Oh, here we go.
And well, let's see, Morbius will be lesbious because there's only one, hopefully.
Lesbious.
But that first teaser trailer dropped for Into the Spider-Verse, and it was honestly beautiful. And I'm like, again, you can't look this good And it was absolutely brilliant and completely revolutionised, I think, not just superhero films, but the multiverse stuff, and especially with animation, because I've not seen a film like that ever.
No. And do you know what it is? Like, it's got to be, like, one of the best films that ties into comics full stop. You know what it is? I'm going to say that it just practically is the best thing to tie into comics. It's so true to the comics. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the perfect superhero film, as you say. I mean, like, I'm quite nitpicky with who you'd class as a superhero. I wouldn't class Batman as a superhero because he doesn't have superpowers at the end of the day. A superhero, to me, is
how about
somebody
a
who has
DC hot
superpowers.
take in a Marvel episode? Batman's not a superhero.
He's not, though. He's a vigilante.
So is Spider-Man, then.
Well, Spider-Man has powers.
He's a mutant.
Batman doesn't.
He's an accident.
He's an accident. Wow, that could be taken into a dark context.
Anyway.
Yeah,
so,
anyway, that was a bit of a tangent.
Yeah, so as we say, we're gushing a lot on Into the Spider-Verse, so the idea of doing a sequel sounds absolutely terrifying, because it's like, how the hell do you top...
you're always scared if it's going to actually top, like, one of the, well, as you say, like, the top 250 movies on Letterboxd.
Mm-hmm. As it turns out, the way you do it is very simple. You just do a completely different film, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, really brilliant. That being said, I don't think it's quite as good as the first film. I think that one just hits a little bit harder, and I've only got a few... It's because of a few nitpicks, but honestly, this is still the best film of the year. Easily. I had an absolutely fantastic time, and you know what I really love? Not a single mid or post-credit scene. Another middle finger to the rest of the superhero genre in the modern day.
It seems to be like... you know what it is? Like, you crack on about, like, tropes and horror and stuff like that. Honestly, it's just a trope in, like, superhero films now. If you don't have a post-credit scene, what are you doing?
Exactly. But then
this is, like, as you say, it's an absolute middle finger.
Yeah, it is. But it's, you know, this is not me treating it, like, in, like, a derogatory way. I think it works for the kind of film this is. It is very, very meta, as the previous film was, and it works on that. It works so damn well. Similar to something like No Way Home, it absolutely delves into what being Spider-Man actually means. Like that one, with No Way Home, it absolutely focuses on the sacrifices you have to make, and they hit really hard in that one. Here, that's illustrated in a far more meta way, and very much delves into the way it works in the multiverse, where it's like, well, we've had, like, when we complain about The Amazing Spider-Man following the same origin story as the 2002 film, that's actually given more weight in this one, because we delve into the fact that so many other incarnations have had to face the exact same thing, the exact same steps.
It's not just these two, you know, there's like hundreds more who've had to do this same sacrifice with Uncle Ben or Captain
anyone else.
Stacy.
Yeah. And so it comes to Miles when he's like, why do I have to follow that? And I love that. It's such a different film. Like when Lord and Miller talked about when this film had a couple of test audience screenings, and one of the things they said was that some people compared the film to The Empire Strikes Back, and you can see why. For one, it's darker. The challenges for the characters are far greater. They're a lot more personal. They're put in positions that you wouldn't expect. But also, like with The Empire Strikes Back, it's a completely different film to its predecessor. Like, no one on this planet will say that Star Wars 1977 is the same as The Empire Strikes Back. It's a very, very different film. It's also really, really weird. Much like with this film.
It's also really, really weird.
So then all of a sudden I'm like, that actually makes perfect sense. Absolutely perfect sense. And again, I loved it for it. But now I'm starting to question if Dan might have liked this just a smidgen more than me. Bear in mind.
Well, the better question is, though, did he like the film at all?
Well, I wouldn't be shocked if you said no, because you're just cruel. Well, it wasn't quite as good as Halloween Kills, but it got close. Like, especially when Michael Morales appeared.
Michael Morales.
More than one can wear the mask. In fact, after Halloween ends, that hits
Morales
hard.
Myers. No, so as you say, like I recently watched Into the Spider-Verse, like probably like not even a week ago, really.
Mm-hmm.
So booked this a day after opening because I just didn't have the time to actually go and see it. Went to view in what was an absolutely packed out screening.
It's probably more packed than mine, to be honest.
Oh,
and mine was
like,
on opening day.
Like, my God, it was packed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, for not even like 24 hours into a release, you know, it kind of shows how good of a film it actually is when half the cinema is literally sold out because of various screenings of this film.
Yeah.
Which says everything. I absolutely loved this film. It was incredible. I think, like, it's better than the original, and that is in no way like a disservice to the original.
Okay. Oh no,
but
no.
I just thought the exploration of the multiverse and the consequences of these other Spider-Men. You know that you are Spider-Man, you sign up for the sacrifice, and Miles Morales is like, well, why? Why do I have to have this? I didn't ask for this. This just happened to me. I absolutely loved it, and you know, even tying in the goddamn live action stuff with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield was just genius, to be honest.
Well, because I think we all assumed that, like, especially with the first film, there were confirmations from Lord and Miller that they were contemplating the idea of having at least Tom Holland appear in some capacity in that film. That obviously didn't happen, and it's probably a good call, because then as soon as you bring Tom Holland into that, or really any of the original live action ones, you're going to draw attention away from this new version of Spider-Man that hasn't been on screen yet. It has been in the comics and incredibly popular, but quite frankly, I mean, Miles Morales might possibly be my favourite version of Spider-Man. It's very, very close between Tom Holland's and honestly the one in Spider-Man PS4. I love that one, like so much. Like the exploration of the character in that is phenomenal until they retcon his face.
I'd probably say that Morales definitely is my favourite one now. Was sort of a combination of all three, because I do like all three. It's hard to pick a favourite out of the three. But I just love the character exploration. I love the multiverse stuff, and you know, I know multiverse is a tool that is used in superhero films. Like, well, it's just going to be the new thing now, really, isn't it? But this just does it so well compared to like other ones, like Doctor Strange, and they even make a reference to that as well. Like, not the Multiverse Madness, but they make a reference to Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I remember that in the trailer, and I just got really, really giddy. I'm like, oh, don't you?
Oh yeah, it made
do
me
not
really
suggest the idea that you're going to delve into that. But I thought you kind of have to be honest.
Yeah,
because
like they've opened so many doors with this film that it's going to be hard to actually like not have any doors to close, because the possibilities are just absolutely endless now.
Well, I suppose I'll address the stuff with the multiverse first, because I wasn't going to leave that until a bit later, but to be honest, because it's nagging in my head. Because it's as I mean, hell, we did an entire episode last year, just after Doctor Strange 2 came out, focusing on what the hell they're going to be doing with the multiverse. So we've now since had a few more. We've had Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania that delves into it. DC's doing that this month with The Flash. I mean, I don't know if we'll do an episode on that. I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing it, might not. I honestly don't know. But it is the big thing that they're doing now. And it's been rubbish every single time, because there's so much emphasis on what's coming next. Other versions of characters, Easter eggs and stuff.
You're spot on there, to be honest, because it's not leading into like the exploration of multiverse and stuff like that. It's just the lead up to what's coming next, more or less, which just bugs the ever-loving crap out of me. Because I'm here to see like characters go across this universe and the consequences they face of changing up the timeline, which is what this film does expertly well, by the way.
I think the bit that broke me with the multiverse stuff was in Quantumania, with the post-credit scene with like a million versions of Kang, and I was like, nah, screw it, you've lost us already. Like, I can't get excited for this, because it's like, oh no, which one are they going to face? Oh no, there's another one over there. That is the biggest risk with opening up the multiverse, and this film very much addresses that, but in a very like emotional way. Like, yes, there's, as I joked at the beginning, 650 versions of Spider-Man in this, but now we're going into spoilers. they're only in it for about 25 minutes. Like, the whole Spider Society stuff, like, that could be its separate thing. Like, everything else is with our characters. Yeah. Because realistically, like, of all, like, the core versions of the character, the other one that we get a lot of is, obviously, with Spider-Gwen, especially, I'll get to that in a second, but with Miguel O'Hara, otherwise known as Spider-Man 2099, who is, I think, arguably one of my personal favourites, just as, like, a very fascinating version of Spider-Man from the comics. Like, he's popped up in video games.
Version of Spider-Man, which I really quite appreciate.
But it really delves into, like, the mutant side of things as well. Like, I know when the joke on where he's like a vampire ninja, that's actually pretty accurate to the comics, where, like, much like with Spider-Man, he's a mutant, like, with his spider powers, but they go a bit further with that, way he does actually lash out and become a little bit more monstrous, and he has to kind of hold that back.
Oh, yeah.
So I really like the fact that they address that here. Like, at one point you see him with, like, fangs, I think. I thought that's like a neat little callback to that, because
the change
it's a
of
very
eyes and stuff like that. Like, he looks quite like feral and stuff like that, as if he's not able to actually control his temper anymore. Like,
that's
he's
like
becoming
that
a beast, really.
Because while you've got the Spot as like a villain, you could argue that Spider-Man 2099 is also a villain as well, and I really like that. To be honest, I like the fact that it's him of all versions you go with, because the Spot is a ridiculous villain to go with. But this is also me going back to the times of watching the 90s.
This is like the first ever time you really introduce something into, well, cinema release anyway. I can't literally think of any other time a Marvel film's introduced the Spot.
He pops up in the 90s animated Spider-Man series. It's actually quite good, to be honest.
I wouldn't know because I haven't watched it, in truthfulness.
That's another one. We're going to have to do that next year.
Fine.
Gonna force you to watch it and then not tell you that it's gonna end on a cliffhanger because the show got cancelled. Oh, sorry, spoilers.
Well, that just fell apart.
I haven't gotten that far. But the Spot, I think, is actually a genius idea, because he's just a stupid character. Like, really is. But
you know what
they do with him here?
Of? And again, it's DC related, but you remember Polka Dot Man? More or less. You got Polka Dot Man, who was like a really stupid name, but he's a serious villain. In this, you've got a stupid named villain and a stupid villain as well. But I love that, though. I love the fact you've got this clumsy ass villain for once. You don't have this smart thinker. He's like really like dumb and doesn't think methodically.
The entire sequence where he's introduced in the bodega and he's like arguing with like the shopkeeper, where he's just like begging him to be robbed. Because he's not very good at this, and you hear him sort of like hinting at his backstory and that, and it's like, this is actually a really clever idea. I really like that. And no offense to make the Spot a legitimate threat, which again, they could have easily just treated him like an absolute joke. But what they do with him here is essentially give this version of Spider-Man with Miles Morales his proper arch enemy, because this guy is going to deal some serious like damage, not just to like his universe, but also to Miles personally, as is sort of pitched towards the end, because, well, as every Spider-Man has, there's some sort of sacrifice with a loved one, and in this case with Miles, it's going to be his dad.
Yes.
So it leaves that on a bit of a cliffhanger.
It does.
But I do love the Spot in this. Again, they could have just made it like a rubbish villain, but what I also appreciate is the exploration for Gwen Stacy. Like, I mean, Haley Steinfeld was great in the previous one. I've always liked Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen, because I mean, I even said this to my girlfriend when we were talking about it. In regards to Amazing Spider-Man 2, when she was talking about how the way they did her death scene was really well handled, and I spoke about how that was a massive thing in the comics, but in reality Gwen Stacy was never an interesting character until she died, realistically. And it was the Amazing Spider-Man films that made her like a really good character, and then the comics made her into Spider-Gwen, which I thought was brilliant. And then with this film, we delve into her backstory a little bit more. We see a little bit more of what happened to her universe's version of Peter Parker, which I don't know if that's in the comics.
Loved, by the way.
Oh yeah, like him being the Lizard. Like, that's actually quite interesting.
It was absolutely brilliant. I thought, like, wow. Because he's a bit of a social outcast and he just wants to be as strong as Spider-Gwen, so obviously you get, like, the jealousy factor there. So he, obviously, the lizard mixes up a cocktail that basically transformed into a giant reptilian beast, and sadly, death happens. And I love that. Like, the fact it's hinted in the first film, it's like, I lost my best friend, Peter Parker. You never, like, see the backstory, and then you get the backstory, and this which just explains it all. I'm like, that's great, you've got me. Like, we're not even, like, halfway into the film, and you've got me.
Yeah, I think it's hinted briefly that he's supposed to be the lizard. I think you get a close-up of, like, the side of his hand, and it's all, like, scales and stuff, I think. But, again, it's, like, a brief shot. And I think I got that from, like, someone else doing, like, an Easter egg thing about it. But she's given a lot more to do here. And, again, she had a lot to do in the previous one, but here, she stands side by side with Miles as, like, the lead of the film. Like, it opens with her, and the final shot is her. Getting this new spider society together to save Miles. And I really like that. I really like that a lot. And again, Haley Steinfeld is brilliant as the character. I mean, she's already in the MCU as Kate Bishop in Hawkeye, but honestly, just scrap that entirely. Just have her come in as Spider-Gwen. I'd love that. Or get like a version of like Emma Stone in as Spider-Gwen, which would actually
I love her arc across this
awesome.
film as well. I mean, like, as you say, she has a lot to do, but this is just terrific. The fact that she's so emotionally distressed, the fact that she has to reveal herself to her father just, goes into a depression, really, because he just doesn't know how to handle it. She joins the Spider Society, and then when, the secrets are revealed, more or less, that, Miles has to put in the sacrifice, otherwise, the threat of the multiverse extinction is inevitable. Things are going to happen, which is, what is explored. I think it's with, I can't remember his bloomin' name, but somewhere in the multiverse, and he saves somebody, but Gwen, you don't actually know it at first, but Gwen saves him, but you think, it's because he's going to fall to his death or something like that. No, it was actually to stop him from messing up the timeline by saving this character.
I had an inkling that was going to be a major crux, because it seemed like a very weird place for her to suddenly say, it's too dangerous. So I thought, okay, this is going to come back into play again. But I do like the fact that one major thing with this is, like that iconic line from Spider-Man Lois, with great power comes great responsibility. That last bit, responsibility, is dealt with a lot here, because you've got both Miles and Gwen, and I guess also the Spot as well, like all sides of the same coin, running from what they're supposed to deal with. Like, she's running away to join the Spider Society, so she doesn't have to deal with her universe and her father. Miles is trying to run away from his responsibilities with his family, because he just wants the Spider-Man, essentially. And it's a classic Spider-Man trope, but it's given more meat here, because now we're seeing this, it's all connected, and from Spider-Man 2099's perspective, it has to be like that. Like, literally, the Spider-Verse is a web, and it's all tied together, and if you just take one bit off, it's going to cause chaos. What it actually sounded like to me was like an episode of Doctor Who, to be honest, where just swap out the multiverse and just replace it with like a timeline. It's like that. It's just like a fixed point, and that's very much the case here, where like every single one has to have some little moments that's going to define them. So that means that in that version, so that was in Mumbai with Spider-Man India, who I forget the actor's name, but he's the same actor who plays Dopinder in the Deadpool films, the guy in the taxi.
Right.
It's him. I love that. And I thought he was brilliant. But I'm sure at that point that must mean there must have been like a moment where another version of Spider-Man was going to pop up. But it's entirely it's entirely like up in the air. But I love the fact it's referred to as a canon event. That's again just like a little in joke for those people who like are obsessed with canon. For those who don't know what that is, that's essentially like not like the rules, but like what should exist. You get a lot with like the idiot Star Wars fans on the internet that just it doesn't happen in the canon, so it doesn't exist, and you're like, oh, shut up.
Well, they're just a whole new breed of people, really, to be honest.
Breed's putting it generously. Still haven't talked about Star Wars yet. Wonder why. That's why. So with this, I like the fact that you can understand where Miguel O'Hara's coming from, where it's like, you have disrupted this is going to cause absolute chaos. But even when, like even have Spider-Gwen go up and saying, do you actually know that that's going to happen? It's like, yes. Like, do you actually? Like, well, no. It's like, right, so you don't actually know.
Yeah.
So it's what it is an emotional reaction, because he's already dealt with it. It's pretty similar to with like Thanos.
But it's because he deals with it and he doesn't want it to happen anymore, really. I mean, like, the stuff that, you see that obviously his story is the fact that he replaces, a version of him. It doesn't work out, he starts glitching, he loses everything around him, so, naturally becomes quite villainous, because he just loses absolutely everything. He can't control any of this, so he wants to keep the balance by controlling everything else, and not letting little Miles Morales screw anything up. But yeah, it is exactly like Thanos in a way.
Yeah, because in reality, there would have been a variety of different ways that Thanos could have dealt with, like, the fact that, like, his planet's resources were being extinguished. He could have done anything. No, he just went for the absolute extreme, because it's an emotional response. It's the same thing with Spider-Man 2099. I'm not necessarily saying that them two are the same kind of character, but the logistics of what they're doing.
In the situation, you can see the reasoning behind it.
Yeah. But of course, as I say, eventually Miles follows Gwen into the universe with the Spider Society, and yeah, we get like a million different versions. Yeah, of course, we get the pointing meme.
Everybody laughed at that point.
Oh yeah,
where it's like,
brilliant.
Find Peter Parker.
you, me, you.
I had a large Coke with me, and honestly, when that happened, I
Yeah,
choked on the straw.
I think, to us, the funniest bit in the film, and it's annoying that it was in the trailer, was the point when it cuts to a therapy session, and there's just a version of Peter Parker who's just like, and I was cradling my Uncle Ben, and the guy's like, and then let me guess, he died. And we all just burst. Like, I thought, that is just
I don't know who it is, but the emo Spider-Man had me in fits as well.
Right. So that's Ben Reilly, who is actually one of the most disliked versions of the character in the comics, because he's a clone of Spider-Man. It came from, I think it was the Clone Saga, which is just one of the most widely derided storylines in Spider-Man comic history. But he's actually voiced by Andy Samberg from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Right.
And you can tell, because he's literally just his character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but as Spider-Man. And I love it. I also love the fact that they kept it quiet until the last minute. It's like, yeah, it's him playing Ben. Like, I just love the fact they got him to do it. You've also got Daniel Kaluuya as Spider-Punk, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, no. Right.
Yeah.
Listen, right.
Right.
Spider-Punk was just the
The
I was
shit.
like, yeah, this has just got me here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the movie's great and all, but now I was totally unaware there was ever such a character. So I literally bought, I think, like a 1 to 5 issue of Spider-Punk. So I'm going to be starting to read that soon because it looks so bloody cool.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, I thought, oh, this is just friggin' amazing.
Yeah. You've also got the Spider-Mobile as well, which I thought, oh, that's so cute that you put that in that. Of course, you get the Spider-Man PS4 version of the character. You get Spectacular Spider-Man. There's a load, but then you also get
too many to name.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I mean,
but it was the point when they started going into the live action stuff, like the first bit you get. Now, this completely went over my girlfriend's head, but you get the Spot quickly popping up in the Venomverse with Mrs. Chen, who's the
yes, the shopkeeper.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I had to remind myself, where I was like, oh yeah, I now know, because the colour palette looks like crap.
It did take me a while to actually recognise. I'm like, oh, it's Venom.
Yeah, it's that one. I'm like, oh, so is Tom Hardy? No, he's not. He's too expensive for a film like this. But then you get Donald Glover making a quick cameo as the Prowler in the actual costume, and he's just sort of sat there. It's like, hi, hello. Like, I love that.
It's rude to stare.
But also, like, I didn't think that we'd ever see it actually in live action. I thought we'd just see an animated version of that. But no, it's actually live action. You get the Lego verse as well with that version
Oh,
of Spider-Man.
the Lego verse was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, it was brilliant. But then, of course, you get a very quick cameo from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Granted, it's just footage from the first film. So I was like, oh, damn it, we were this close. This close,
This
man.
close. But still, I really like that, though. Like, because, I mean, as you say, though, if we're getting, like, the live action, you're going to be drawing away from this version of Spider-Man back into the live action versions.
And major credit to this film, because, again, like, the whole Spider Society stuff is just a chunk of the film. And my favourite stuff is the rest of the stuff. Like, I'm not saying it's bad by any means, it's just... It doesn't rely on the nostalgia or the Easter eggs or stuff like that or fan service.
No, it's
to
definitely
make
not.
it work.
Yeah. I mean,
And
as
I was
say, it is
really
a
worried.
chunk of the film. And I can totally see why you're worried, because I was worried. You know, this is going to be like an ultimate fan service.
Because the full trailer that dropped like a couple of months ago had the song "What's Up Danger" playing over it, which is the music that plays in the first film when Miles swings around in New York for the first time. Fantastic scene. And I love that song, man. I'm not even big on rap, and I really love that song. But that was playing across the entire trailer, and I'm like, if you're seriously telling me you're going to be like referencing that first film too much, or just Easter eggs, like I'm tuning out. But at the same time, that first film had no right being as good as it was, so there's still a part of me that thought, no, the sequel's going to justify its own existence. And it does that even more with the revelation that Miles Morales is actually an accident. He wasn't supposed to be bitten by a radioactive spider, because the one that did was from a different universe. And that took me a little while to actually like catch up to that in that kind of moment, because everything's like being flung everywhere, like there's spider people running across a train in glorious fashion. But at that point he's then given like essentially his Luke, I am your father moment.
I saw a lot of that in that scene. Like, I really liked it. Again, Empire Strikes Back.
Well, I mean, not to reference The Last Jedi, but I will. This film does a really good job, much like with that one, where it's pitting characters in positions they do not want to be in. They get things told that they don't want to know. Like in the case of The Last Jedi, it's Rey knowing that she's a complete nobody. In the case with Miles Morales, it's learning that he wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man. Like, he wasn't supposed to be there, and if he wasn't there, his version of Spider-Man would have survived, and the multiverse wouldn't have broken open. So and again, the kid's like 15 during the events of the film. I'm sat there thinking, you're throwing all that at him. Like, that's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, you're trying to pin, like, absolutely everything on, so this version of this... Well, again, like, this version of Spider-Man becomes quite, like, villainous. Again, quite, like, Thanos-y. And he's 15, like, he's a kid. Like, how is he meant to know? And you're just pinning all the blame on him.
And then, of course, you know, I knew the film was ending on a cliffhanger, because I already knew this was initially pitched as Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Like, the very first trailer claimed it was that, and then we were getting Part 2 next year. We still are, but it's now dubbed Beyond the Spider-Verse. But I knew it was going to end on a cliffhanger. I just wasn't expecting it to be a case where he gets back to his universe, he thinks he does, and then he reveals himself as Spider-Man to his mother, and then she's like, what?
Spider-Man? Who's Spider-Man?
And at that point I was thinking, is he done like a Doctor Who and just completely screwed up the timeline? No, he's in the wrong universe, because the coding for the machine in the 2099 universe marked it for the Spider, not Miles Morales, who's 1610, I think it was, or something. In this case, he's now in. Like in this case, he's on Earth 42, where the Spider came from.
Yeah.
And there's no Spider-Man at all.
No.
And in this universe, Miles is the Prowler. And I kind of felt like when you see that his Uncle Aaron's alive, I'm like, okay, right, I think I know where this is gonna go. But again,
because then you get like the huge graffiti mural of his father, but obviously, as we know, in his own universe, it's his uncle, rest in power, but in this one, it's his father, rest in power. So then you know instantly you're in the wrong universe.
Yeah, but I love the fact that it isn't just like spoken. It's not like any exposition. We learn that completely visually. So the film
Oh,
never
yeah.
treats the audience like an idiot at any point, and
Oh
I
no,
really like
doesn't
that.
doesn't take it for granted at all.
No, definitely not. Again, I really appreciate that, and the ending is like, I legitimately cannot wait to see how this thing's gonna end, because I'm like, both of these are so damn good.
Oh yeah.
If the third film doesn't live up to that, like, let's be realistic, it might not, because I can't think of a single perfect trilogy in my head beyond the Dark Knight trilogy is like a good example. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head right now, and I guess
Indiana
the original Star
Jones.
Wars trilogy. I can't think of anything that's that like perfect each time. It would be great if we
argue-
finally got a new one.
I'd argue the Indie trilogy.
No, actually, I wouldn't even say
Oh!
like. Well, here's the thing. I'll say this now, because now I know that we're going to do an episode on the new Indiana Jones and the stupidest title in the entire franchise. I went there. I'm sorry. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull's a crap film, but at least the title's awesome. I still think Raiders is the weakest of the three. I still really like it, but I don't love it. Like, I think
Ouch.
Temple of Doom's better.
No,
And then I think The Last Crusade is better than that.
Oh, I mean, Last Crusade is my favorite out of the trilogy. Like,
Correct, well done.
Jesus, like it's brilliant. But
10 points to
no, I'm considering what I mentioned before about superhero films. Like, over the past however long we've seen them in cinema for, each time they're just getting more and more mediocre. There's only really the one out of 5 films that are generally alright. Really. I can't think of a film that I've seen in cinema by Marvel or DC where I was like, you know what, that was actually really good. I was just like, well, it was fine, I guess. I mean, Black Adam was probably the last superhero film we saw.
Together-wise, yes.
Yeah. And that was just... But
Yeah,
with
it was
this, I have a lot of hope for it because, I mean, as you say, this film has no right to be as good as it is, and it just is. It's friggin' terrific. This film is also friggin' terrific, but a little bit better because I like it a little bit more. But that's just because I had no idea of the Spider-Verse or anything like that. I went into it pretty blind, as in watched the first film 7 odd days ago. Went into this just expecting more multiverse stuff, but was pretty much just kicked off my seat really. So I've got a lot of hope for the third one, and yeah, you are absolutely right saying that it might not be as it might not live up to the first film or even the sequel, but I do have high hope for it because these are just exceptional films.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I will say the nitpick I had, because I haven't actually mentioned that, but yeah, is honestly just the runtime. 2 hours and 20 minutes is a bit of a slog, and it's also the longest animated film done by a Western studio, which sounds hilarious.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, occasionally I felt occasionally I thought it was going to end a couple of times. I honestly thought it was going to end at the train sequence.
Yeah, I thought that.
It felt like we were gearing up to that, he's going to escape and then it's going to end on that cliffhanger, because then we don't know where he's going to go. But in this case, we see where he goes and then that's the cliffhanger.
I would have been quite interested if they actually did end it there, and you do little sort of trailer clips to part 2 of Across the Spider-Verse, and you basically have him landing in this universe. He reveals that he's Spider-Man to his mother, sees the mural, then your audience know that he's in the wrong universe, meets the Prowler but himself is the Prowler, and then that's just it. I think that would have been quite an interesting thing, but I think it would have been a little bit on the nose at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. It's again, I'm trying not to get my hopes up too high with the next one, because it could be naff. It's entirely possible. Even we've said quite a lot over the last few months. We've been and ahhing as to what stuff we're going to cover this year, because I know superhero stuff is kind of the rest of the MCU.
Well, you
I'm
have
not
a
interested in
burnout
this year.
from it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Secret Invasion, I might watch. I'll think about it. The Marvels, I'll probably watch. I don't plan on covering them because sod that. With The Flash, I'm certainly going to watch it. I don't know if we'll cover it.
Yeah.
It might be a surprise one that we do. Like, all of a sudden we're both seeing it. Okay, let's just quickly crank out an episode, because we probably could. Because, we're just that professional. But
Teesside Comic Con over again, which is basically sit in the car and record an episode.
That's not a terrible idea. I mean, it is. It's a terrible idea. No, it's not. But I am certainly worried. It has been interesting though, reading the reactions online. One of them that I really got mad at, to be honest, was there was a few people that really disliked the fact that despite Miles being the lead character, the film opens and ends with Spider-Gwen. And they're like, well, why isn't it Miles? And I'm sat there thinking, do you remember the tagline for the first film, which is, anyone can wear the mask? That's kind of the point. Like, yes, Miles is the audience surrogate, but there's a lot of other characters around. And quite frankly, I wanted to see more from Spider-Gwen, and you can't do that if you just keep her on the sidelines the entire time.
Yeah, because then it wouldn't work as a film. Like, it's not. It's basically just a generic multiverse film all over again.
Exactly. Like, all she would amount to be is just an Easter egg. And she's not. She's an actual three-dimensional character, which is ironic. Because I wouldn't really class this as 3D. Well, maybe 2.5D. We'll class that as
2.5D.
Yeah, which you do actually get into some video games. I'm sure there's like I think when Batman Arkham Origins went to like the PS Vita, I think the version that went to there was classed as 2.5D because it's somewhat 3D occasionally, but it's still like a side scroller. It's some rubbish like that. I didn't play it. It just goes to show how much I know. But yeah, I mean, seeing the reactions has been really interesting because I joked before we properly started recording, like this is still like acclaimed like the previous film. I'm like, oh really, is this? And I was thinking, I don't know if it will be. And the reactions have been very interesting. Like some really love it, some think it's a masterpiece, like yourself. Like some think it's better than the previous film, and some have been a little bit more. And I'm sat there thinking.
Well, you can't really please everybody, but
no, of course
not. I think
but
everybody likes it. Like, there's just really the odd few who are a bit like. But I wouldn't say they really hate it. They just don't really think. Much of it,
Well, no, because I mean, you should never try to please everyone because it's not possible. I mean, and you can see when they try to, like some studios, Disney, Star Wars 9, and even Star Wars 7, to be honest. They try to cater to everyone and then occasionally end up pleasing no one. This one is just like, this is what we're going to do. If you're on board, fantastic. If you're not, oh well. There's like a million... yeah, exactly. There's a million other things. But there's nothing else out there quite like it. Especially with this, and it's, again, with this exploration of how the multiverse works, both in a literal sense, but also in an emotional sense. And then, as I say, you've got Miles, like, off the side thinking, I want to make my own version of this. Like, I don't want you guys telling me what I can and can't do, which honestly sounds like the sort of thing like a kid would say to his parents, because Miles is going through that as Miles, and now he has to do it as Spider-Man as well.
Like he's trying to be an adult too quickly. Like he's a kid throughout the entire film. Like the way he talks, his attitude towards the Spider Society, like basically just trying to father him in a way. It's like, you won't do this. But Miles is like, well, why?
Yeah,
why
exactly.
can't I do this? I want to live in a world without consequences. I'm not gonna. I love the fact that like when they're all just basically, the secret is revealed that they're gonna essentially trap him to stop him from trying to save his father, so the multiverse can go back to its timeline. It can, fix itself. And I really like the fact that Gwen starts actually realizing, you know what it is, like, I don't agree with this, I actually want to help the only friend I have now.
Yeah.
Again, like, her arc is fantastic.
I can guarantee you, though, because both these films are very good at, like, subverting what we expect from these types of films and characters, and of course to do the whole thing of the will they won't they thing with Gwen and Miles, which, to be honest, if they did, that's really sweet. I really like that. But I can guarantee they're not going to do it, because if they do, one of them is going to go because they'll have to.
Yeah. I think you're treading on like thin ice if you went in that way.
Yeah,
because it is totally going to be the trope of one of them is going to pass.
Oh
one
yeah,
of them's going to die.
But that's also me saying that I really like I joke on the fact like, oh, will they, won't they? I actually care. Like I want them to get together because they're really good together as characters, especially as performances as well. Like the chemistry is spot on. But then I also don't want them to get together because I know what it'll lead to, and it's just going to be terrible for them both. That's me saying that as someone who actually cares about these characters, not like the whole thing on the internet. It's like, oh, will they, won't they? Hashtag whatever. Like I actually care about them as characters, and I both want them to live, frankly, and I can guarantee they got together.
You actually care about
one of them's going to die.
You know, clearly shows how much development they have if you're literally rooting for them to basically just live their lives without consequence.
Just kill them both.
Just kill them both. Do it.
If I can't have one, I'm not going to have any of them.
You know what it is? That sounds like a certain horror film that came out last year.
Oh yeah.
And you know exactly what it is.
I'm not gonna lie, at first I thought you were gonna reference like the Boogeyman that's just been released. I'm like, mate, do not reference that film. I don't know anything about it yet. But then no, you're referring to the one that's... No, that's fine. You're referring to the Halloween film that I like more than you, even though I don't particularly like it.
But it absolutely is though. Like, come on.
Yeah, it is.
If I mean, as long as it doesn't end in that
way. I mean, I'm sure there's a version of Spider-Gwen played by Jamie Lee Curtis is suddenly going to start like attacking a version of Spider-Man. Just randomly. Even though it's never led to this and is not earned at all. Just like, which one am I going to attack?
Oh, no.
I'm going to attack the Spider-Cat.
Evil changes the spider. Dun, dun, dun.
I'll be curious if the microphone picked up the wind noise. I don't know if it will or not. It might do. It's pretty accurate to wind. But yeah, I again, I'm really nervous about what they do, but I can't deny I'm really excited, and I've already got it penciled in for like an episode next year. I think it comes out next March. I think.
Well, at least it's like actually earlier next year, like, you know, rather than, well, fingers crossed anyway. You know, I don't want to like say that it's going to be absolutely in March, because it might not be.
March 29, 2024.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
But yeah, I mean, I could say final thoughts, but we've kind of done that. I'm exactly like you. I think it's an absolute masterpiece of a film. It's easily the best film of 2023. And if I'm looking at my top like superhero films of all time, or at least Marvel, it's probably just under the previous film. To be honest, like it gets really close, but I think it is purely just the runtime. I think for me hurts it. Like if it was just 10-15 minutes shorter, it would have been right alongside, if not better.
Yeah. See, the runtime honestly didn't bother me, but then again, you know, I went into this pretty blind, to be honest, so I really didn't know what I was expecting, so maybe it just flew for me. But no, I think if I was gonna like rank it, it would 100% be like Across the Spider-Verse and then Into the Spider-Verse. Like if I had my own way, they would literally be in a tie, because they're both equally brilliant.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a ranking, it would be that, Into the Spider-Verse, and then, like, you know, the other ones.
No, well, I think that's actually... I'm actually surprised, because I honestly wasn't sure how this episode was going to play out, like, reaction-wise. Despite me knowing, like, a little bit about what you thought of the previous ones, I thought, okay, it's probably going to be the same. But I honestly wouldn't have been shocked if you suddenly turned around and was like, yeah. Because to be honest, you know what it is, I had flashbacks to when we did the Shazam episode, which I'll be honest, I haven't listened to since we recorded it, because you could tell we had very much run out of things to say on a film that's pretty mediocre. That's not an episode I look back on particularly fondly. I won't get rid of it or anything, because, you know, there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but it just goes back to the whole thing of us questioning as to whether or not we wanted to cover the superhero stuff, because, again, it's burnout. I'm just kind of sick of it. But at least with Into the Spider-Verse and now Across the Spider-Verse and more recently Guardians 3, it has reinvigorated it again. Not by much, because it's probably just going to be a temporary thing, but I'm still curious, for sure.
Yeah. I think my curiosity's there, but I'm being quite careful with how I feel about releases. Obviously, I don't want to like go into like a new live action superhero film thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be absolutely terrific, and then just be disappointed. Because that's happened before.
Yeah, and I've been conscious of not. Yeah, and I've always been conscious of, especially this year, I've been conscious of, we're not going to explicitly cover only stuff that we like.
Yeah.
But I am going to push for that a bit more. So some films I think we would probably go and see, but we wouldn't confirm as to whether or not we're going to see them or cover them, because it could be naff, to be honest. Like, even the Shazam one, I think both of us were like, should we?
We were pretty mixed on it, to be honest. Like, I mean, we were like, well, we might as well just record an episode and see how it goes. At the end of the day, I mean, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever watched. To be honest, Black Adam was worse than Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
I mean, yeah, and then Ant-Man was even worse. Sorry.
Yeah, that was
terrible.
That was a film.
Yeah, it is. Yep. But yes, that's our many thoughts on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Gratefully one that we're very happy with, to say the least.
Oh yeah. Hopefully, like week, Marvel's cinema releases take a lot of influence from this. Again, I know it's Sony projects and stuff like that, but hopefully they just look at it and like, you know what it is? They've done a terrific job with multiverse stuff, because again, the multiverse stuff is a tool that is going to obviously be utilised in a lot of future films. This is it's big in superhero films for now. Ant-Man, DC. It's going to be here for a while, I think.
Yeah.
So it would be nice if they actually just go back and like, you know what it is? We did some stuff wrong. Why don't we do it like this?
Yeah, I mean, plus talking about Spider-Man, one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. I'm never not going to enjoy doing that, even if it's like a film that's naff. And yeah, Spider-Man is one of the most iconic superheroes of them all. But you know who else is as well? Not Batman, obviously, because Dan hates him.
I don't hate Batman.
Hashtag not my hero. Yeah, I went there.
Hashtag not my superhero.
Now, another one is Superman. And we are going to be covering Man of Steel next week.
Oh, that was smooth.
Very, very smooth. I'm very good at that. I couldn't really think of another way to do it. But yeah, it's going to be around 10 years old, around when we record and upload episode 57 of The Real Podcasters, but we will be delving into the first installment of the DC Extended Universe, soon to be, dead, with 2013's Man of Steel, directed by one Snack Zyder.
Snack Zyder.
So here we are talking about Zack Snyder again on this podcast. I can hardly wait.
Well, thankfully, it's not like the 4-hour edition of Man of Steel.
No, this is the 12-hour version. It's just extreme slow-mo. No. Everything, like, even the opening logos take about an hour.
I know.
It's like really slowly.
It's like even the logo to like come on the screen, it takes like a solid 30 minutes and like another 30 minutes to actually just finish.
Yeah, listening to Hans Zimmer's score in like 12,000% speed, that's going to be an interesting one.
I'll definitely have some thoughts on that, because I'm going to listen to the record, seeing as how I own it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put the film on now, actually, as of when we finish recording, to be honest. Or I'll do it later, who knows. But yes, you can look forward to that next week. And yeah, as you can tell, every week we've got an episode out this time. I'm not in Norway or anything. I've got nothing else to do in June. But yes, you can look forward to Man of Steel next week. And until then, it's goodbye from Dan.
Ta-ra.
Ta-ra. And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.